Krishna, and a very good morning to everyone. It is so nice to see you all. I would personally like to thank you for coming to Ottawa to give us for your association here. It is my honor, more than my pleasure, to welcome you to my presentation on retirement in Krishna consciousness. From my humble attempt to make this presentation on this significant topic, I hope that there will be at least one thing that I say that will strike your attention or touch your heart, that you will be able to take it back with you and apply it in your Krishna consciousness. First of all, let's hear what Wikipedia has to say about retirement. Retirement is the point where a person stops employment completely. A person may also semi-retire by reducing work hours. Many people choose to retire when they are eligible for private or public pension benefits, although some are forced to retire when physical conditions no longer allow the person to work anymore, by illness or by accident, or as a result of legislation concerning their position. In most countries, the idea of retirement is of recent origin, being introduced during the late 19th and the early 20th centuries. Previously, low expectancy and the absence of pension arrangements meant that workers continued to work until death. Germany was the first country to introduce retirement in 1889. So that's what Wikipedia has to say about retirement. So it is a fact that when we retire, we need to survive, as had been many years ago when most people had to work very hard until death or depend on their children. In some countries, people had lots of children as an investment, with the hope that their children would take care of their aging parents. In modern times, those with a secure pension and are apparently wealthy, their ambition is to enjoy as much as possible. However, for those who are interested in our spiritual pursuit in Krishna consciousness, in this human form of life, there is a higher understanding. And that is why His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, came to the West, to the English-speaking world, to give us this higher understanding found in the Srimad Bhagavatam and by the personal examples of the previous acharyas. For those of us who are so fortunate to be the recipients of Srila Prabhupada's mercy, the best way to reciprocate with His Divine Grace's mercy is to take the responsibility of personally living in accordance with His teachings and by our own example, sharing this mercy with others. So to discuss today's topic, in aging in Krishna consciousness or retirement in Krishna consciousness, I chose to refer to various verses and sections from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and at the end, I would like to read some of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers on Sharanagati to show us the mood of a great acharya. So before doing so, I would like to offer my humble obeisances to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Parasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashtashade Satarini Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam karoti vacharam pangam rangayate girim yat kripatam aham bande Shri Gurum Dinatarini. So we see in the modern world, people work very hard while they are young, and they look forward to the time of retirement when they will just relax, take it easy, travel around the world, explore, with the aim of trying to enjoy life when they retire. They do not realize that retirement is the time when old age kicks in. No one likes to grow old because old age means suffering. The physical body becomes so vulnerable that there is so much distress, and these distresses gradually become permanent parts of our life, and we just have to tolerate them and live with them. Old age is also a part of nature's arrangement, and we cannot avoid it. When we hear of someone retiring soon, whether it is a co-worker, a family member, a friend, whoever it may be, we should realize that this person will have to face the consequences of old age. That is the time when many afflictions that come along with old age. We should think that this is the time, or our time is coming very soon, and we will be just like that person. We should be conscious that every moment should be utilized for this purpose, and we should not be fearful or depressed by the natural arrangement of Krishna's material energy. Just as, in spite of all the faults of this age of Kali Yuga, there is one good quality, and that is the chanting of the holy name, that enables us to become free from material bondage and attain the transcendental kingdom of Krishna. Similarly, we should see the sufferings that come with old age, diseases, and death as one of the greatest, most treasured opportunity in life, because they are a necessary incentive for us to surrender to Krishna and to find an eternal blissful life in Goloka Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada was the perfect example of someone rendering practical service to Krishna in his older years, and he taught us by his example. When he was about 50 years old, he took Vanaprastha, and he dedicated his life exclusively to the service of his Guru Maharaj's mission. There were no distractions. Later, he took sannyas, and he gave his life for the welfare of others. If we look at the nature of compassion found in the 6 Goswamis, from the prayers Sri Sat Goswami Astaka, we will see the same mood of compassion found in Srila Prabhupada. The Goswamis were always chanting the holy name of Krishna and dancing. They were very expertly, scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. They were offering obeisances as Srila Prabhupada has taught us to do. They were honored all over the 3 worlds. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada studied the scriptures and delivered thousands of lectures, wrote many books, and initiated thousands of disciples. He traveled quite extensively, not merely to attract followers, but out of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls, he wanted to save us from hellish lives. He also traveled to ensure his disciples, who were already initiated, does not drift back or fall back into their old bad habits. Along with all of that, he would take his morning walks to keep his body fit, so that he could continue translating, preaching, and traveling. He would receive massages. He followed a strict schedule in his daily activities. So he set an example how to keep the body and how to keep the body fit exclusively for bhakti. Then, by nature's arrangement, when there was not much else that he could do to keep the body and the soul together, then he went to Vrindavan. But still, he was translating. He was doing his service to the last moment in whatever way he could be completely absorbed in Krishna. He even showed by his own example the consciousness that one should have at the time of giving up his body. Once, in his very last days, he was very fragile, and he was surrounded by many of his followers. And he looked at them and he said, "Don't think that this would not happen to you." But they did not understand what he was saying. But after many years, many devotees had started to get some realization, and more realizations certainly would come. And an illustration of how Srila Prabhupada's service attitude increased with age is taken from one of his memories, as was heard. In 1973, the pujari went to wake up the deities one morning. Srila Prabhupada was there in Calcutta. On the altar, Prabhupada noticed that the picture...
Hare Krishna, I please invite all the devotees to please come to the pandal and participate in today's presentation. Or if you're not so inclined, then please tone down your conversations, or it's kind of distracting. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
In Calcutta in 1973, the pujari went to wake up the deities one morning. Srila Prabhupada was there in Calcutta. On the altar, the pujari noticed that the picture of Lord Nrsingadev was gone from the altar and thought someone has stolen the picture of Lord Nrsingadev. Then it was discovered that Prabhupada was very, very sick that night and thought that he would not make it the next day. So he had a picture of Lord Nrsingadev removed and kept in his bedroom all night. The next morning, Satsvarup Maharaj told the devotees, "You cannot blow the conch shell for Mangal Arati." And he led Mangal Arati in a whisper. And the devotees, they responded in a whisper. Then, after that, a long telegram came from Shyamasundar Prabhu in London. And Shyamasundar Prabhu was glorifying all the preaching opportunities in London. And he said, they are having a huge Rath Yatra. It is the first Rath Yatra in London, and we want you to come, Srila Prabhupada. We are going to have a helicopter pick you up at the airport. There are many important people who want to meet with you, Srila Prabhupada. Also, we have made arrangements to instruct the Queen's oldest son, Prince Charles, in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada had a serious blood dysentery. And hearing the news about preaching opportunities, he sat up on his bed, called all the senior disciples into the room and asked, "What should I do?" So they had a meeting and then concluded, "Srila Prabhupada, the best thing for you to do, either you go to Hawaii or you go to Los Angeles and try to recuperate." Srila Prabhupada said, "I'll think about it." Then he said, "No, let me strike while the iron is hot. I will go to London. I will go to the Rath Yatra. So Prabhupada went to the Rath Yatra. One of the devotees observed as he entered into the temple and commented that he was very, very weak. He said, I was amazed, but I could understand that his strength was spiritual. So they took Srila Prabhupada down to the parade in front of the carts. He looked at the Vyasa-san arranged for him and he said, I am going to walk in the parade with the other devotees. I am not going to ride. So Srila Prabhupada started walking and the devotees were having an amazing kirtan. And Srila Prabhupada was dancing and dancing back and forth. Then sometimes he would stop and look up at Lord Jagannath and say, Hari Bol. Then he would keep on dancing. And then he was dancing so fast that the devotees would have to wait with their Rathikat to keep up with him. Then Shyamasundar Prabhu came up to a devotee named Suradajaya and said, listen, Prabhupada is not going to make it. I want you to follow him with a car and you'll be within 30 seconds in case anything happens. But Srila Prabhupada didn't care. He kept dancing. He had his cane, but he was holding his cane up into the air and dancing with it. The onlookers were just rooted to the spot. They found it an amazing sight to see just an old man leaping into the air, jumping with his cane, turning around and doing all sorts of twirls. This was Srila Prabhupada after his severe dysentery, of course, and he didn't care. He was drawing a big crowd around him. This is the potency of a Mahabhagavat. The bhakti energy from a Mahabhagavat is emitted, and when one comes into contact with such a person, he or she can get some bhakti. Just by seeing the crowd, just by seeing Srila Prabhupada, the crowd were just overwhelmed with ecstasy. We have heard many examples of many people drawn to Krishna consciousness by just being in the presence of Srila Prabhupada. At this Rath Yatra, just by seeing him, not even hearing from him, there was so much bhakti emanating from him that the crowd is experiencing ecstasy. The policemen started getting worried. They were looking for somebody official. Then one of them went up to Shuta Kirti Prabhu and said, you have to tell your leader he has to sit down. He is causing a havoc in the parade. You know we cannot control the crowd. Everyone is going wild. You have to tell him to sit down. So Shuta Kirti Prabhu didn't listen. So again, the policeman came up to Shuta Kirti Prabhu and said, you must tell him to sit down. Shuta Kirti Prabhu then went and tapped Srila Prabhupada on the shoulder and said, Prabhupada, the policemen are saying that you must sit down. You are causing a havoc in the parade. Srila Prabhupada just turned around and ignored Shuta Kirti Prabhu and he kept on dancing. The policemen, they won't say anything directly to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada won't stop. Therefore, they couldn't do anything. There was one devotee who was a book distributor. And he said, I was distributing BTGs and I was exhausted. I was having a lot of trouble keeping up with the procession. But Prabhupada was there dancing just like a young boy. He said, I was amazed at his spiritual energy. One devotee commented, Srila Prabhupada was leaping off the ground just as in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya would be dancing and sometimes the cart would stop to catch up. Sometimes the cart would stop and he would dance in front of the cart. Finally, the parade arrived at Trafalgar Square, and Srila Prabhupada held his hands high up in the air and he exclaimed, Jai Jagannath. So he danced the whole way, and this was the day after his severe blood dysentery in Calcutta. So we can see how in Krishna consciousness, old age does not matter. This is why Srila Prabhupada is called the Acharya. He was teaching by his example. He was 77 years old when this Ratha Yatra took place, and he took this opportunity to fulfill the instructions of his Guru Maharaj, to preach Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking world. This is called pure devotional service. Pure devotional service is to do whatever is favorable in the service of Guru and Krishna. The materialists, they make so many plans for that day when they retire. They do not realize that old age will hit us, although we do not want old age. It will come anyways. Krishna is Kalarupa, or eternal time. This is the manifestation that Krishna appeared on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In reality, Krishna moves everything, and ultimately time destroys everything in the material world. If someone has some piety, the fear that naturally comes from old age will drive one to the shelter of Krishna. In the 4th canto, chapter 27, entitled Chandavega Attacks the City of Puranjana, in the purport to text 5, Srila Prabhupada warns us about the golden age, the golden years. That is the period of youth between the age of 16 to 30 to pursue physical pleasure. He continues in his purport, these 13 or 15 years of life are years in which one can very strongly enjoy the senses. When one comes to this age, he thinks that life will go on and that he will simply continue enjoying his senses. But time and tide wait for no man. A quite astounding concept is that a devotee is not affected by old age because he has achieved some shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. A devotee learns from Srimad Bhagavatam, one needs the shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of Krishna to cross the insurmountable ocean of material energy. And then, padam padam vipadam natesham. That ocean shrinks to the size of a calf's hoofprint, very, very small. So practically speaking, there is no anxiety to cross over the water of a calf's hoofprint. Similarly, if one takes the shelter or one attains the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, then there is no anxiety of crossing beyond the material energy, and there is no anxiety beyond death, because one is holding on to something very tangible. So how to get that tangible shelter is the essence of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yesterday, His Holiness Niranjan Maharaj spoke a fair bit about how the Acharyas help us to cross this ocean of nations to attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Some of us may be wondering, it is so easy just for the speaker to just sit there and quote sections from Bhagavatam. But here, with our Kali Yuga conditioning, we are struggling to survive, to just go by day after day with our daily activities. How can we ever think about perfecting our lives? Srila Prabhupada teaches us that we can achieve the same results as the great yogis without having to go to the forest to perform austerities. This is Kali Yuga. And we just have to follow the process recommended for this age by the previous acharyas coming down from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 20, Lord Chaitanya tells Sanatan Goswami in verse 345, whatever result was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dwapara Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can also be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In verse 347, it is stated, those who are advanced and highly qualified and are interested in the essence of life know the good qualities of Kali Yuga. Such people worship the age of Kali because in this age one can advance in spiritual knowledge and attain life's goal simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 4.967, Srila Prabhupada very clearly gives us the process that is so simple yet so sublime, whereby we can achieve the same results of the previous ages in this modern time, this modern age. I'll read the translation of this verse and then the purport. After considering his advanced age and deliberating on the welfare of his spiritual self, King Uttanapad detached himself from worldly affairs and entered the forest. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. As Maharaj Dhruva practiced austerity in his early age, his father Maharaj Uttanapad in his old age also practiced austerity in the forest. In modern days, however, it is not possible to give up one's home and go to the forest to practice austerity. But if people of all ages would take shelter of the Krishna consciousness movement and practice the simple austerities of no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no meat eating, and chant the Hare Krishna mantra regularly 16 rounds. By this practical method, it would be a very easy task to get salvation from this material world. End of Srila Prabhupada's purport. So here we can see Srila Prabhupada gives us great hope for us struggling devotees. Here is a promise from Srila Prabhupada to us. Chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, and it will be very easy for us to get liberation. So in this chapter, Maharaj Uttanapad had passed through life as the emperor of the world. In that position, he had seen great joy and great suffering. That is the nature of life. Whoever we may be, whatever we may have, whatever position we may occupy, the world's nature is to inflict upon us suffering and portions of happiness in this material world. And this is Sukha Dukkha. It is all temporary, and therefore it is the stage of the illusory energy. However, for one who is situated in knowledge, in the association of saintly person, they learn to see every phase of life as a learning experience. Because ultimately, whatever happens, it doesn't really matter. Good or bad karma, success or failure, victory or defeat, honor or dishonor, they are all temporary and of the past. And the spirit soul is the witness of these phenomenal events that come upon us. Srila Prabhupada explains that the material world is like a prison house and is created for those who have this criminal mentality. Real truth is seeing everything as Krishna's property, and he should be the enjoyer. Srila Prabhupada told us that when we worship the deity in the temple, we learn how to feel happiness when we see that Krishna is happy. This is the beauty of deity worship. When we experience a higher taste, we do not need anything for ourselves. real happiness in God is where we will find real happiness in life. In whatever yuga we may be, we have to experience these dualities in life. And we all have to grow old. No one wants to grow old. Because, as mentioned before, old age means suffering. However, as old age progresses, a devotee has a very clear understanding. I am coming closer to death, and everything will be taken away, and I should surrender at the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna. Another reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada talks about retirement. This is taken from the 3rd canto, chapter 2, Remembrance of the Lord. When Uddhava was asked by Vidura about Krishna, verse 3, I'll read the translation and the purport. Uddhava thus served the Lord continually from childhood, and in his old age, that attitude of service never slackened. As soon as he was asked about the message of the Lord, he at once remembered all about him. Purport by His Divine Grace. Transcendental service to the Lord is not mundane. The service attitude of the devotee gradually increases and never becomes slackened. Generally, in old age, a person is allowed retirement from mundane service. But in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no retirement at all. On the contrary, the service attitude increases more and more with the progress of age. So in Canada, the retirement age is 65, and I imagine it is the same in the United States. And we can withdraw our pension contributions that we made in the earlier years, and we can live very comfortably. Here Srila Prabhupada is saying, or Srila Prabhupada says, in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no retirement at all. On the contrary, the service attitude increases more and more with the progress of age. Now, why does Srila Prabhupada say that the service attitude increases with age? What does age has to do with service attitude? Anyone?
More times. We have more time to do it.
More time for service, yes.
You're more detached to your sense gratification.
Sure.
We have a whole bunch of life experience that we can use for Krishna.
Right, because we have been doing service for so many years, there are more ruchi, more attachment, more realization. Anything else?
There is no other thing to depend on, only Krishna.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, we can also understand the ludicrousness of material existence. Yeah. Yeah, we have.
Are you ready to retire? All right. Training you up and retire.
Yeah, we can understand the ludicrousness of material existence. And what is ludicrous about material life? We have tried so many times to make plans for material enjoyment. But by the time we get to 40 or 50 years old, we realize that there is no real enjoyment. It is time to prepare for the next life. So the body gradually deteriorates while we are in it, and we realize that the enjoyment is not in the body, it is elsewhere. If you remember earlier, we talked about the golden years. Srila Prabhupada warns us about the golden years, when the senses are very strong. And at retirement, all we have to do is to struggle for existence. So this is old age.
And we are under pressure to accept the fact that death is near.
Thank you. So let us continue to read some more of Srila Prabhupada's purport that we are discussing. In the transcendental service, there is no satiation, and therefore there is no retirement. So Srila Prabhupada started this movement when he was 17, way after the age of retirement. Continue reading from the purport. Materially, when a man becomes tired by rendering service in his physical body, he's allowed retirement. But in the transcendental service, there is no feeling of fatigue because it is spiritual service and it is not on the bodily plane. Service on the bodily plane dwindles as the body grows older, but the spirit is never old, and therefore on the spiritual plane, the service is never tiresome. Uddhava undoubtedly became old, but that does not mean that his spirit became old. His service attitude matured in the transcendental plane, and therefore, as soon as he was questioned by Vidura about Lord Krishna, he at once remembered his Lord by reference to the context and forgot himself on the physical plane. This is the sign of pure devotional service to the Lord, as will be explained later on in Lord Kapila's instructions to his mother Devahuti. End of that purport. In the fourth canto, this is the same chapter from which reference was made earlier to as the golden years. Narada is very kindly speaking to King Prachinabahisat by illustrating the story of Puranjana to give up attachment of fruitive activities by which are the means of obtaining pleasure. Puranjana was performing fruitive activities with the hope that he would be able to enjoy more and more and more as he gets older. So to help us give up our desire for sense gratification, we can say our obsession with the bodily concept of life, this being me. I can enjoy as long as I want and as much as I want. Narada Muni is showing very clearly that despite the romance, the fun thoughts of a future, if I do this in the future, then there will be some happiness. Then I will gain some happiness in the material world. But the happiness never comes. In fact, it is just a promise. It is the anticipation, dukhalayam ashvatam. It is ultimately crushed like everything in the material world by time. Like Puranjana in this chapter, his lifespan was running out. While immersed in his pleasure, he had not noticed that the rising and the setting sun of the sun, he had not noticed the rising and the setting of the sun. Old age has struck him gradually, day by day by day, night by night by night, as he was enwrapped in enjoying his body and those things that were produced from his body. His life was gradually shortened. Each day shortened his life by that particular day. He had forgotten any purpose in life and he had gained no shelter. Then, amazingly, practically speaking, old age hit him just as it would hit each and every one of us sitting here. So all the plans we make for retirement is like a dream or a promise. There is always the dream of enjoyment. There's the anticipation that, yes, if I have this, then there's always, then I will be happy. But then that happiness never comes. If it comes, it goes quickly, just like Sitoshna Sukha Dukkha, seasonal changes. They come and they go, they come and they go, they come and they go. One cannot do anything about these changes, but just have to tolerate them, practically speaking. Therefore, at retirement age, when old age really starts to set in, that is the time of life when a wise person understands my life should be used exclusively for Krishna, for devotional service. And the earlier stages in life is meant to develop a strong foundation in life so we can progress smoothly into retirement age or vanaprastha. in the song Bhaja Hure Mana Sri Nanda Nandana, written by Govinda Das Kaviraj, in verse 3. He sings, He Dana Yobana, Putra Parijana, Itiki Achi Paratitire, Kamala Dala Jala, Jivana Talamala, Bhajahu Hari Padanitire. What assurance of real happiness is there in all of one's wealth, youthfulness, sons, and family members? This life is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus petal. Therefore, you should always serve and worship the divine feet of Lord Hari. By understanding this principle that I am not this body, we can see the reality of how this body is temporary and is subjected to changes. There are 4 basic kinds of suffering: birth, old age, diseases, and death. And no scientist or philosopher has ever been able to make a solution to these 4 miserable conditions. It is not that people in the years gone by wanted to die and become diseased and become old. If we look, let's say in the past, let's say 1,000 years ago, there were billions and billions of people who took birth in this earth planet. And every single one of those billions of people didn't want to get old, or didn't want to be diseased, and they didn't want to die. Whether they were yogis, famous people, beautiful people, intelligent people as doctors, scientists, or the powerful and influential Einstein. In each and every one of those billions of people, they tried, using whatever ability they had, to stop birth, disease, old age, and death. And not one of them has ever succeeded. So here we are dealing with our formidable enemy, very substantial. No scientist or philosopher had ever been able to make a solution to these 4 miserable conditions. Bhagavad Gita states, for one who has taken birth in this material world, death is certain. When one surrenders to Krishna, Krishna takes charge of the devotee. And Krishna can accomplish many things just by one action. All the plans we make for the future after retirement, we cannot avoid the old age and the consequences that come along with old age. Sometimes a devotee may appear to be in some apparent difficulty or suffering, but devotees know that one purpose of their suffering may be to increase the devotee's dependence on Krishna. The other could be, it is a test, and by taking a test and passing a test, we are making advancement. And not only that we are making advancement, but others who see how the devotees face the test and pass the test, they appreciate the devotees and they get inspired to follow in the same way. So definitely devotional service begins from the point of surrender, and once one surrenders, Krishna takes personal care of the devotee throughout our old age, right up to the death, even for the most neophyte devotee. For the non-devotee, one of the main criteria that makes them struggle to hold on to what they have and they find it difficult to give up is fear. That fear that comes with old age. They think, when I retire, I do not have a job. Who will take care of me? I still feel very young in my heart and I want to enjoy more. We heard from Srimad Bhagavatam the situation of how Dhritarashtra had fallen into this trap of a comfortable life of material enjoyment, and how fear had overtaken him. He became very fearful of giving up material comfort. Then his half-brother, Vidura, after hearing from Maitreya Muni and remembered his old and weak brother, he returned to save him by giving him some powerful instructions to leave that environment he was in. Dhritarashtra was within the palace, elderly, blind, so comfortable, but time, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, was imperceptibly stealing away the remainder of his life, because time has its specific purpose. Vidura clearly understood the situation with Dhritarashtra, and out of compassion he decided to free him. If we think of Dhritarashtra being tightly bound with the ropes of circumstance, he was old, he was blind, he was royalty, so trapped, used to comfort, used to people doing everything for him. Everything that he wanted, he had. This is like a binding of many, many thick ropes. Goodness, passion, and ignorance are like the binding of many. Goodness, passion, and ignorance are the ropes of material life. So Vidura went to save his elder brother Dhritarashtra. And how did he do that? He used the knife of his sharp words to cut him free from these ropes. The sadhu speaks in the first canto, chapter 30. Vidura gives his powerful instructions to his brother Dhritarashtra. Another example in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, chapter 8. Kunti Devi prayed, O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So this is the ultimate goal of life, Krishna Prema, unalloyed love and devotion to Krishna. Kunti Devi is praying without any diversion. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction constantly be drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So although Kunti Devi was the mother of 6 sons, Karna and the 5 Pandava brothers, and the love for her sons were beyond all bounds. As well as all the difficulties she experienced in life, she was fully aware of her relationship with Krishna, the process and the goal of life. She worshipped the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, according to the process. She prayed to the Lord to help her develop a relationship with Krishna and break off this bodily material attachment. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:30-20 is stated, always engaging in the activities of devotional service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in all their activities. Now why does it become increasingly ever fresh for devotees? What makes it fresh? Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam. The ocean increases. Krishna is ever fresh. The closer we get to Krishna and experience our relationship, that makes it fresh. In the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada says, a devotee is inspired by the super soul within the heart to advance in devotional service in a variety of ways. The devotee does not feel hackneyed or stereotyped, nor does he feel that he is in a stagnant position. So the best example of great vigor and old age is Srila Prabhupada himself. So in conclusion, at retirement, a wise person understands my life should be exclusively utilized for Krishna in devotional service. The earliest stages in life is meant to develop a strong foundation in life so we can progress smoothly into retirement age for Vanaprastha. So this is the end of my presentation, but as I mentioned earlier that I would like to read the translation of some of the songs by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur to give us an idea of the mood of a great Vaishnava. I have 10 minutes left, so I'll try to read as much as I can within this 10 minutes. So I'll be reading from these 4 songs by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Sharanagati. The first song on humility or Danya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, O Lord, because of forgetting your lotus feet, I have come into this material world. Ever since that time, I have been suffering various material miseries. Now I have approached your lotus feet to tell you the tale of my distress. O Lord, when I was within the womb of my mother, as a result of my karma, you gave me darshan, but ever since then, I have been deprived of your mercy. At that time, I thought I would worship you. After being delivered from the womb, after my birth, however, I forgot you because I became entrapped in a network of illusion. In fact, I do not have even a tinge of genuine knowledge. I became a pampered child and spent my time enjoying the affection of my relatives. In this way, I became completely engrossed in the affection of my father and mother, and so I began to like this material world. Gradually, I grew up day by day and began to play with other young boys. At some time, when I became a little mature, I concentrated on my studies. O Lord Hari, being puffed up because of my education, I traveled from place to place, earning money. I took care of my family members with great care. In this way, I completely forgot you. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur laments, I have become old and afflicted with various kinds of distress. O Lord, I have wasted my life, but not worshipping your lotus feet. What will be my destination? Song number 2. I spent my time enjoying with confidence the results of my academic education. I never bothered to worship your lotus feet. Now, however, I accept you as my shelter. In the course of my studies, I grew confident, thinking that by material knowledge, I would be able to achieve my goal in life. But my aspiration bore no fruit, because material knowledge is insignificant and the cause of ignorance. All types of mundane education are simply the tricks of Maya, and as such, they are impediments in the path of your worship. Such an education creates an illusion within the minds of the living entities. In fact, it makes them become like asses in this temporary material world. Becoming an ass, I carry the burden of my family life for a long time. Now that I am old and have no bodily strength remaining, I do not feel happy. Now my life has become the cause of great pain. My education was the cause of my ignorance. I feel the severe pangs of ignorance as if I have been shot by an arrow. There is no other wealth in this world than your lotus feet. Therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives up all mundane education and accepts your lotus feet as the essence of his life. Song number 3. When I grew up, I became mad, and after accumulating money. Thereafter, remembering my duty, I got married. I set up my family life along with my wife and thus spent my valuable time. Many sons and daughters were then born in my heart. I felt morose. The responsibilities of family life increased day by day, so much that I finally became unable to carry on any longer. Moreover, old age captured me and made my mind restless. I feel uneasy because of various diseases, and my mind is full of anxiety. My heart is burning because of poverty. I only see darkness all around me, and so I have become very afraid. The waves in the ocean of material existence are unlimited. The fact is, my death is imminent. My resolve that I will worship you after completing all my duties has never come to pass. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, "O my Lord, please hear me. I have no shelter. Without your mercy, there is no hope for me. Kindly give me shelter at your lotus feet." Song number 4. My life is such that I am always engaged in sinful activities, so that there is no tinge of piety. I have caused a great deal of anxiety to others. Indeed, I feel as if I have caused distress to all living creatures. I am not afraid of committing sinful activities for my own happiness, because I am merciless and selfish. I am unhappy to see others' happiness. I always speak lies, and I become happy when I see others' distress. There are unlimited material desires within my heart. I am full of anger, and I am puffed up with the false ego. Indeed, I am always intoxicated by false pride and overwhelmed by thoughts of material enjoyment. Envy, pride are my ornaments. I am defeated by sleep and laziness. I always remain aloof from performing pious activities, but I am very enthusiastic about performing useless activities. I have embraced the cheating propensity for the sake of name and fame. I am always under the control of greed and full of lust. I am always under the control of greed and under the control of I am always under the control of greed and full of lusty desires. I am such a sinful person that even saintly persons have rejected me. I am constantly offensive. I am devoid of all pious activities, and my mind always wanders toward unwanted things. Because of this, I am afflicted with various miseries. Now I am old and have no other alternative. Besides, I am poor. Being without any possession, I, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, submit my distress at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That's the end of my presentation for today. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and I thank you very sincerely for your participation and your patience in hearing my presentation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mother Shanti. As Mother Shanti usually does at the temple, after a presentation, she immediately leaves. So, first I just want to comment that it leads right into the next presentation, which is Vanaprastha. But before doing so, if amongst the senior devotees, if you have any particular realizations or comments you wish to provide, or some feedback, I'd be happy to hear from you at this time. Does anyone have anything? Yes, Gokula.
I really appreciate the quotes from Prabhupada's teachings. It shows how Prabhupada gave for the whole of mankind the full plan how to live in this world and become Krishna conscious at every stage of life, Like there's the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, like speaking that you can't waste your youth and frivolous things. But then this substantial presentation about, not to be complacent in old age, but to challenge oneself. Anyway, it's like a big eye-opener, even for myself. And Prabhupada's teachings are all-encompassing for every phase of life and every type of person. It's all there. It's really, really substantial. Thank you very much, Mr. Shanti. It was really, really well done. We're well researched, and it was really good. Thank you.
A few years ago, I decided to try preaching by responding to newspaper correspondence, like letters that people had written to the newspaper. I was in England, and the first paper I picked up was the Times, which is kind of, in England, it's a high-class paper. And the first letter I read was a lady who was talking about retirement. I was just looking to see, if there's a possibility here of introducing Krishna conscious topics. And the first letter was about retirement. She was saying that one should not just retire and play golf and do crosswords. You've got a whole lifetime of experience behind you. It's a time for giving wisdom, for guiding the young people. She said that's what it's for. And I began to correspond with this lady. And it just made me realize that it's not, vanaprastha or retirement in Krishna consciousness is not just a kind of Vaishnava concept. This is a human society-wide concept. You retire from family life and you preach. You speak your lessons of life. And that was my reflection that when you get old, you can't manipulate and control your environment as well as you used to be able to. You can't enjoy it. You can't enjoy things. You can't enjoy life. And people, materially, they don't want to know you anymore because you can't do anything for them. So it's an excellent push. We're being pushed by Krishna to service, because service to him is something which has no material impediment. It doesn't matter if you're completely rigid in a wheelchair, your devotional service can continue. So, retirement is a really, as this point came out, it's a really good time for increasing service, and particularly for preaching, because, if you're preaching relevant information to younger people, then that's the way you can interact with people. You can still have relevance, and not only still have relevance, but, be a very essential guide for people.
Thank you very much for sharing your practical experience and actions in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the nice presentation. I really liked it, and I think this topic is important for everyone, no matter if we are young or in old age, because just like Vasudev said in to King Kansa, he was saying that even if you're just 25 years old, your body is already dead for 25 years. So this is something we have to reflect upon, because we're all going to face old age and death. And just like Madhura nicely said, this helps us to have a strong resolve in surrendering to Krishna. So we should all meditate on that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation, Mataji. Just have a question on the songs of the acharyas that Mother had read, and I always had this question, so would appreciate some advice. So when we hear, especially our acharyas, and I'm Bhaktivinoda Thakur and even Narottam Das Thakur, they write such songs in lamentation and all these details. How should we what should be our mood when we hear our acharyas kind of lamenting and talking in such a way? What should be our mood to understand it? How to understand that?
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll ask some of the present representatives of this Acharya Sampradaya. Any of the senior Vaishnavas would like to answer this question? Father Mohan Prabhu.
Somebody else can answer. I mean, I'll be happy to. Somebody uses call
I think Maharaj is very graciously and kindly giving us air space now by remaining silent, though he has a volume of wisdom. What I suspect is that the pure devotees, they're not kind of, floating on a cloud or something. They are pure devotees and they know who they are, and they're full faith in devotional service. But they experience the pushings of the senses and the aging of the body and the pressures of material. They experience these things. Otherwise, how can they write about it? They experience them, but because they have transcendental knowledge, they understand the perspective of these things. It's not that they become depressed because I am now an old man and nobody wants to know me anymore. They don't think that I am an old man. But still, they're in a material body. And I mean, it's like Srila Prabhupada, he went through so many tribulations, but because he's firmly fixed in his constitutional position of devotional service to Krishna, he never bunched an inch, but still, he went through them, and then, so, that's how we can have courage to go through these things as well, because someone has already trodden a path and, come out shining.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Maharaj, anyone else would like to add some comments? I will try to follow Maharaj's lead from yesterday that we don't take the whole half hour between the two lectures to give some time for everyone to take a break. I am clueless as far as time, so if we could go till maybe, we haven't reached there yet, about 11:45 at the latest, so we can have some time before getting ready for the next presentation by Krishna Mishra Prabhu on the topic of transition from Grihastha to Vanaprastha. Does anyone have anything else? How will we time for you? 45. Okay, so then, should we stop now, Maharaj? I think we'll stop now. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. And thank you, Brother Shantu.